In this section, we are going to build our user interface. To save us time, as I've mentioned, we're going to use inheritance. So we're going to build a template user interface, and then we're going to inherit from it to build our 3 user interface screens. Let's get going. So I want to be in Godot, don't I? Scene, new scene. This time we want a user interface scene. So click that. And we get a control node, which is what we want. I'm going to double click and change it to UI template. And I'm going to save it to GUI because it's vaguely related to the GUI. So I'm going to keep everything in there that's related to user interfaces. Save it in there. All right. The next node I want is a MarginContainer. That enables us to provide a nice margin around our screen, so things aren't just reaching all the way to the edge. I'm going to go back into UI template and just check that my anchors are set correctly. So I just come over here to the little circle with a cross in it, and I just want to check it's full screen, which it is. That's excellent. And you can see there by the orange line, my control node is covering my whole screen. Right, into MarginContainer, and let's set up the margin. So I've got layout selected there, but if it isn't, you just click on layout, and you go to transform, and we've got size. So I'm going to have a 50 pixel margin on the x-axis. So we're 640 by 480, so I'm going to change that to 540. Nice big margin. Put that there. Maybe not quite so many on the Y, maybe 40 pixels. So we're 640 by 480, so let's go 540 by 400. Okay, that looks good, but we are offset. So now if we go into position, I move it 50 pixels on the X, so I put 50 in as the X, and 40 as the Y. So now it sits nicely in the middle of our screen, and we've got a nice big margin around the edges like that. So that's looking good. Right, what do we need? The next thing we need is a VBoxContainer. VBoxContainer, very useful node. Everything we put in the VBoxContainer, or to put it more correctly, every child of the VBoxContainer is arranged vertically within it. So it keeps things very neat and very well laid out. The VBoxContainer will be a child of the MarginContainer. So with the MarginContainer selected, click the little plus. Then we want a VBoxContainer. All right, good. We've got our VBoxContainer. Right, now the first child of the VBoxContainer will be an HBoxContainer. Guess what that does? That arranges everything in a horizontal line across the screen. There will be 2 children of the HBoxContainer, so I'm going to keep that selected, and I want a label. No, I don't. I want a TextureRect, which is down here. That's going to be our little picture of the robot. So I'm just going to change the word to picture by double clicking. Back to HBoxContainer. So we're going to have a picture this side and the title of the game this side. So for the title of the game, I need a label. Put that in there like that. So we've got a picture, we've got a label. Okay. The picture needs a texture. So let's go into the texture. If I come over here and click on this little arrow down here, I should be able to load an image texture. So if I go into assets, art, I want the PNG files, not the sprite sheets. Robot miner, you can have anything you want, but I'm just going to have the first robot miner picture. You could have the flames, you could have the robot miner looking a bit sleepy, but that's, I'm not sure why you do that. I'm just going to go robot miner 0, and go open. And there's my little picture of the robot miner there. Right, label. Label lets us put our title in. So if I go into text and write robot miner, you'll see it appears, but it's quite small and it's not in the font that we selected. So let's go ahead now and take care of that by implementing our theme. I'm going to start working on our theme by adding it to the overall node. So if we go into our node and we click on theme, and it says theme is empty, we need a new theme. So click on new theme and then click on theme. We get a little editor down here. And what we want to do to start with is do the default font. So again, click on the little arrow and just load one. And if you do quick load, it should find the only font that we've got in our file system, which is the one we've just imported. So let's try that. And yeah, look at this, Orbitron variable font. Open that. And let's set the default font size to 24. And now let's write robot miner in the label. I'm not sure it'll work. Let's see. It does work. All right, looking good. So now what we've got, if I play the scene using my clapperboard, is the robot miner looks pretty good over there, but the title is too small and it's all a bit skewed to the left here. So let's see if we can get it more centered and make the writing bigger. What we want to do is go into our HBoxContainer and we want to go into alignment here where it says begin, change it to center. That centers it. The next thing we should do, I think, is make our writing a little bit bigger. I want to make it sort of approximately the height of the picture here. So if I go back into UI template, and then I want access to my theme, which I have here. Go into my theme, click on the arrow, because before I do any changes, I want to save the theme. So I save it. And I want to save it just in GUI. That's good. And it's just called UI template.tres. I might even just change it to theme because we're only using one theme. Save. Looks good. So now if I go back into my label, click on label. And what I want is first I want to add my theme. You see it hasn't got my theme. So click on there, quick load, and it'll give me the theme. So do that. As you see, my font's changed. And then I want to go theme overrides because I want to make the writing bigger. So I go font sizes. And I'm going to change that to try 64 because it's a 64 pixel sprite. There we go. You see it's much bigger. Or has it stretched the robot? Let's go 62. Yeah, it has. 48. There we go. All right, that looks a bit better. So save that. And now I want to work on separating these two things, the picture and the label. So I need to go back into my HBoxContainer. And the property I'm looking for is separation. There's a handy little search box up here. If I type in, it says filter properties. If I type in separation, really useful in helping you find where your property is. And again, it's in theme overrides. And I've got separation then. You can see it's set to zero pixels. So maybe 20 pixel gap between the two of them. Yeah, that looks a bit better, doesn't it? Okay, good. So I'm going to save that. And let's crack on with our text boxes. Next, we need to add a text box down here to say welcome, or you died, or congratulations, you won, something like that. Then a smaller text box with some instructions. So perhaps in the welcome screen, it will have the controls. Maybe we don't need to have it in the screens that play at the end of the game, but we'll see. Then we need 2 buttons, okay? One for quit and one for play. So I do need the margin container. I actually need the VBoxContainer too, but not the HBoxContainer. So as a child of the VBoxContainer, I'm going to add a label, and look at it, it's already selected. And I'm going to call that message large font. Going to select it, going to go Control D to duplicate, and I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to call it message small font. I'm not going to write the messages in there because I want a different message in the different inherited screens, okay? So if I type something in, I run the risk that I'll inherit it. I don't want to do that. Just want to inherit the node and not the values of it, okay? So I've got large font, small font, and back into VBoxContainer, I want a button. So click the little plus, the button, click that, and that's going to be, just change the title, that's going to be called button play. Click off it, select it, Command D, Control D, whatever you use, and I'm going to call this button quit. Okay, next thing I need to do is wire up the quit button to the control node so that we can quit the game when we press it. The play button will be doing something different. So in the first screen, it'll play the game. In the screens that display at the end, it will go back to the first screen, and then you'll be able to play the game from there. So we can't configure it here in the template scene, but we can configure the quit button because it always does the same thing. So it's fine that we can inherit that behavior. I'm just going to write quit on it. And you see it's already inherited our theme. So that's good because the theme, of course, is attached to the parent node. So that's good. And it's 24 pixels font, which isn't bad. Remember, we can override it down here if we want to do things like that. What I need to do now, though, is I need to connect a signal to the parent node. And for that, the parent node needs a script. So I'm going to put a script on the control node by clicking the little plus here. GUI UI template, good. Node, I want an empty script, and I want it to be safe there. That's great. Create. Good stuff. Go back to 2D view. I'll save it though. 2D view. Into button quit. And we need to go into node to create a signal, and the signal is going to be pressed this time. So we send a signal to the parent node when the button is pressed. So click that, connect it to the control node. That looks good. And we get our function generated as usual. And all I want to do is say get tree brackets or parentheses dot quit. Save that. I think we can go back to 2D view and do a little bit of a test. So go to the clapper board to run this local scene. And when I click the button, it quits. All right, that's looking good. So that is our template scene for our user interface complete. In the next sections, what we will do is create inherited scenes with the 3 user interface screens that we actually need. The welcome screen, the you won screen, and the you died screen.